Okay. Good day once again, class. Okay, I'm your teacher for ethics, Hazel Cherry Rose Villanueva. And once again, I'm welcoming you on our chapter 3, or let's say week 5 of our first semester. Now, I would like to make a reminder regarding your check-in questions. Napansin ko po kasi that you are inclined because of the notice I gave you na 1 week po kayo pwedeng mag-fulfill ng inyong requirements regarding the check-in question or check-in attendance. Let me remind you that your check-in answers for the attendance quiz reflects kung kailan po kayo nakatapos ng inyong lesson or when you have attended the lecture. So if it means that you checked in on day 6, the day before po ng ating klase, I'm giving you 1 week, right? It's only leeway for those people who are not able to attend classes kasi meron po tayong mga 3 to 4 people in every class na working students. So yun lang pong ini-expect ko sana na malilate mag-check-in. So, reminder po, your check-in attendance quiz is also a reflection kung kailan po kayo natapos sa task na binigay ko sa inyo. So, reminder, fulfill it as soon as possible and do not do it on the last minute. Tulad po ngayon, day 6, pag almost na po ng classes natin, saka pa lang po pumapasok lahat ng attendance nyo. Let me remind you that it's a reflection of your fulfillment ng mga ni-require ko po sa inyo. Okay? So, I advised you na you can do it later within a week. But please, reminder po, it's a reflection po ng inyong kung kailan po kayo natapos sa task nyo na binigay sa inyo or sa mga gawain na binigay po sa inyo in-assign for the week. Okay? So, check in as soon as you can. Especially po within the time period ng klase natin. Ibig sabihin po, tinapos nyo lahat ng gawain within the period ng klase natin. You didn't need the extra time of 1 week kasi hindi ka naman working, di ba? But if you're working, kindly PM me para hindi ko po kayo nabibigyan ng deductions as well. Doon sa ating mga outputs in Google Classroom. Okay? So, we will proceed to our chapter 3, and this is like the last lesson you have before midterm exam kasi ang natitira po ay for your finals. But I think we could touch a little pa sa chapter 4 kung wala pa pong notice for midterm exam. Now, you only have 6 chapters to study as you can see po doon sa inyong module. And your lessons will be covering the midterm exam chapters 1 to 3. But if we can do it in advance, chapter 4, pwede pa po nating masakop. Para konti na lang po yung ating pag-uusapan sa sa finals ninyo. Okay? Now, we're going to talk about natural law. Okay? According to Aristotle and Aquinas. So, sila po yung mga dalawang philosophers na mga na-discuss na rin natin previously, right? And Aristotle is one of the Greek philosophers ng ancient times. And Thomas Aquinas, is a Catholic priest or a Dominican friar who lived in the 12th century. So, sila naman po ay, ang mga studies po ni Aquinas ay connected with Aristotle's study of human theology. So, meron po tayong mga pag-uusapan about the purposes of life or the purposes of the natural law or natural order of things. Okay? So, now, the first picture that I'm going to show you is the question, what separates you from an animal? Okay, so kasi ito po ang pinagkakaibahan natin sa ng tao at hayop. Ano po ang pagkakaiba? So, we have many similarities. We need food, shelter, but clothing, hindi, di ba? Okay. Reproduction or sexual reproduction, meron din po sila. But what separates humans from animals is their reasoning. Okay? The inner principle, according to Aristotle, the inner principle of human nature is reason. wala po ito sa animals. This is the driving force of human development and action. So dito po ang ability natin to reflect on our own behavior and surroundings and change them in light of our thoughts. Ito po yung nagse-separate sa atin from animals. So human beings can focus and change their surroundings based on their actions. And their actions could be dictated by their reason. Now, nandito po, writing within an Aristotelian tradition, the distinctive feature of human nature is reason, and so morally good actions are those which are guided by reason to fulfill their natural end purpose. So, dito po nababase ang natural law. So, unlike animals, human beings have reason. At meron po tayong capability to direct our inclinations to establish a moral code. So, meron po tayong pwede natin, yung reason natin nagagamit natin to establish a moral framework. And these natural inclinations po natin, yung ating moral framework ay dictated by our natural inclinations such as food, shelter, law and order, and reproduction, which people innately desire for living. So, ito daw po yung mga fundamental goods natin nakakailanganin. Food, shelter, law and order, reproduction. So, usually, kung titingnan nyo po, animals don't have law and order, right? Unless they are properly trained, like canine dogs, what else? Hindi mo sila matitrain to have reasoning, but you can train them physically and a little emotionally, a little of all. But unlike humans po, we are all inclined to follow a certain moral code or framework. Kasi meron tayong reasoning. Wala silang reasoning, and they can only survive through the dictations and the caring of human beings na meron pong sariling mind or instinct to develop life, to give you food, shelter, and all things that are needed for your basic needs. So actually, natural law or the rational ordering of natural inclinations is supported by Freud's hierarchy of needs. So nandito po nagre-reflect ang food, shelter, law and order, at reproduction. So nandun po yung sense of belonging. If you can review your Sigmund Freud hierarchy of needs, nandun po lahat yon. So, basic is food and shelter. Tapos, on the middle part, sense of belonging or belongingness. And then, the last one is, what is that? The last one that you need for the hierarchy of needs is your sense of fulfillment, di ba? So, nandun, self-actualization. So, nandun po yung pinaka-supporting po ng studies nito. So, during the 12th century, Freud was not yet alive, kaya ito po ang mga supporting studies din na ginamit niya. Unlike po ng kay Aquinas, binase niya yung studies niya with Aristotle, who was alive like 300 BC, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay? Next one is Aristotle. So, according to Aristotle, na pinagbasehan po ni Aquinas ng kanyang study, the key idea of his natural law is that there is an unchanging order or principle to the changing physical world. So, by understanding this order, we can learn what is natural for something or someone to do or be or become. So, its purpose or telos. Ibig sabihin po, the word telos means end or purpose. So, supreme good is always the fulfillment of a purpose, sabi niya. So, kung ano po yung nakakabuti for nakararami, that's the fulfillment or the supreme good. So, Aristotle's theory of causes distinguish between efficient and final causes. So, later, ang efficient and final causes, we'll be discussing that in one of the slides for Aquinas. Okay. So, according kay Aristotle, philosophy that something is good if it fulfills its purpose. for which it was created. For example po, a good knife is one that cuts well. Kapag hindi na po matalas ang kutsilyo, wala na po siyang silbi sa atin. We either hahasain po natin to or we throw it away and buy another one. A good burger is one that is tasty and filling. Kapag hindi po kayo nabusog or hindi po masarap ang burger, hindi po na-fulfill ng burger ang kanyang purpose na kayo po ay busugin and at the same time kayo ay malunasan ng gutom at ma-enjoy nyo ang pagkain nyo. Or you get your money's worth. Siyempre, burger po na special is mahal. So, for example, bumili ka ng, hindi naman sa naninira ako, no? But there are some burgers na hinahanap mo pa kung nasaan yung palaman or nasaan yung beef. Unlike some burgers na nakikita mo yung cheese, nag-uumapaw na, yung kanyang beef, ay nakikita mo na sa labas ng tinapay. Hindi lang puro ketchup at may yung makikita mo. So, it fulfills its, kumbaga, pag kinain mo yun, sasabi mo, craving satisfied, di ba? Hashtag craving satisfied. Kasi, na-fulfill ni burger yung kanyang purpose, which is busugin ka ng masarap na burger. Okay? Now, what is humans? Ito, meron. As we go along, okay, sorry about this one. Kalimutan ko dun sa introduction. As we go along, we have 5 tasks within the lecture. So, these tasks, as you go along, hindi ko po ito ipopost dun sa GC as a separate activity. But what I am going to ask you in GC is to find the 5 tasks within the video. Kasi nakipansin ko po, we have a declining number of people attending the lecture. And not everybody, I only had 97 attendance doon po sa, what do you call this one? Sa ating YouTube comment section. We only have 97. And we had 200 plus views. So ano po nangyari sa iba? Ibig sabihin po, pag hindi nyo kinoment yung pangalan nyo at section doon, hindi kayo nanonood ng lecture. That's what I'm thinking. So, kung ano man po ang sagot ninyo doon sa GC or sa Google Classroom, may duda na po ako kung kayo po talaga ay nag-aral or nakinig sa lecture. Guys naman, please, mahirap po ang mag-record ng lesson nyo. Kasi, kailangan ipasok po lahat. Pinag-aaralan din po naman namin to. So, please give us a signal na nakukuha nyo naman po ang lectures natin. Alam ko po na some of you are bored, but this is just like 40 minutes, 50 minutes. Hindi naman nauubos ang buong oras nyo. Kesa naman po mag-lecture si ma'am. Please, wag nyo pong i-fail na i-comment yung name nyo. Kasi pag hindi po kayo nagko-comment, ibig sabihin, pre-recorded lessons are not working. And so we are going to go back or suggest going back to Zoom classes wherein nakikita namin talagang nandyan kayo para may manatututunan kayo in actual time. So please, support nyo po ang pre-recorded na lesson. Kaya, and by clicking your comment or writing down comments there, mas maganda po. Next time po, hihingin ko na yan. Doon na ako mag-check-in attendance sa inyo sa YouTube. Mas gusto nyo ba yon? So, dito po, mas madali po, ha? Yung pinapagawa ko sa inyo. Let's support each other. Kasi, pag hindi po pre-recorded to, pare-pareho po tayong mahihirapan. And at the same time, mas lalo po kayo. Ako, trabaho ko yun eh. Kayo, you have to attend ng, kumbaga, compulsory na. So, please support nyo po. Pakita nyo po yung support nyo that you are content with kapag hindi po kayo nag-click doon, ibig sabihin, hindi po kayo kontento sa YouTube lecture ng teachers nyo. So, yun po ang isa sa mga interpretation sa akin. Okay, now, going back to the task. So, you have 5 tasks within the lecture. So, yung task 1 is ito po. Write only 1 to 2 sentences for each sa object. So, sa each object na to, isusulat nyo lang po, ano po ba ang purpose ng bawat bagay na to? Okay? So, that's for task 1. Task 2. Consider this simple question, what is the purpose of human life? So, meron na po dun sa task 1, di ba? So, dito po sa task 2, I want you to write your own purpose as in your human life. Okay? 2 to 3 sentences lang. Maikli lang muna. Okay? So, what is your purpose in your human life? Okay, that's for task number 2. Now, continuation with our lesson. What is natural law? So let's talk about what natural law is na expanded na meaning. Okay? So, Aquinas built on the idea of Aristotle and developed natural law into a moral framework. So, in-establish niya. So, meron ngang sinabi si Aristotle noon humans need to have a purpose in order to live. Pero wala naman po siyang specific guidelines kung paano po gagawin ito ng humans. And on this time, Aquinas wanted to do a moral framework. So, para sa kanya, natural law is an absolute theory that is not rooted in duty or externally imposed law. Hindi po ito nakasulat sa mga batas. Meron po tayong framework, di ba? Doon last lesson natin, we talked about moral right and legal rights. Legal rights are based on laws of humans. Samantalang moral right, hindi po ito nakasulat. But we are there to support it. We are there to naturally incline na hinahanap natin yon because that is what we think is right. It is what is universally good. Kumbaga, the greater good for the greater number of people. So, doon po tayo na i-incline sa moral right. Now, these moral rights could not be imposed, however. Hindi mo pwedeng pilitin ng isang tao na sundin ang what is morally right with you may be morally wrong with them. For example po, same-sex marriage. Kung sa akin, sa mga paring Katoliko po, mali ang same-sex marriage, there are those people who support legal marriage of same-sex marriage. Right? So, magkakaiba-iba po ang ating mga moral rights. Now, instead, it is found in the human nature daw, and our search for genuine happiness and fulfillment. So, fulfillment kapag nagawa mo yung tunay na purpose at nagiging happy ka sa tunay na purpose na yon. So, there is a natural order of things in this world determined by some supernatural forces or powers that should be followed. So, meron po tayong eternal law. Later po, pinakamataas po sa lahat is eternal law, which is very absolute. There is a natural order of things that we cannot stop, na nandyan po talaga in existing, even before the world was born or the universe started. Tulad po ng halimbawa, the miracle of birth, di ba? Paano po nabubuntis ng tao? Nobody can explain that one. Even science can explain the development, but hindi nila di-discover kung paano nagkakaroon. Di ba tulad natin, life. Paano nagkakaroon ng buhay ang isang tao? Paano ito nawawala? Meron na tayong mga scientific explanations. We have heartbeats, we have brain waves, kaya tayo nabubuhay. There's blood in our veins, pero hindi po natin napapaliwanag kung saan po yan galing lahat. Okay? So, supernatural powers daw po yan na nagdidictate ng buhay ng human nature. Okay? So, human beings are naturally inclined towards its moral code. Kung ano daw po ang mas nakakapag-fulfill ng ating natural order of things, doon po yung binabase natin yung ating moral good or what is good for everybody. The moral life is a life lived according to reason. And by discovering our telos or purpose, we can work out how to achieve this. If it does not give a fixed law, kumbaga, moral framework or moral code does not have a fixed law. It is not always straightforward and there is some flexibility in its application. So, dun po tayo nagkakatalo-talo. Now, for you to understand po kung saan po tayo nagkakaiba-iba na. Kasi meron po tayong eternal law, meron po tayong divine law, and then we have your natural law and then the human law. Saan ba yung ano na yun? Ito siya. Malayo pa. So, later po, balikan natin yan. Kung ano pong pagkakaiba nila. So, kung bakit po nagkakaroon ng flexibility sa natural law. Okay? So, pag-usapan natin mamaya yan. Dito muna tayo, balik tayo sa purpose of human beings. So, Aquinas believed God created the world, which is the efficient cause, with a sense of order and purpose that reflects His will. So, For those who are not Catholic, sorry, but nung nasa international school kasi ako, mas mahirap to i-deliver ang lesson na to because most of them does not worship the same God that we do. So meron pong Islam, meron po akong Buddhist na students, meron po akong Hindu students or Hinduism, a religion. So meron pong iba-iba pong relihiyon na hindi po umuubra itong topic na to because this is more on the Catholic side. And since Philippine education is based on Catholic religion, kasi yun po ang ating majority dito sa bansa natin, medyo nasusunod po ito. So, Aquinas believed that God created the world, which is the efficient cause, with a sense of order and purpose that reflects His will. Although, eudaimonia, human and societal flourishing, is part of our human nature. We are made in the image of God. So, eudaimonia, katandaan niyo po yung term na yan, it's human and societal flourishing. Ibig sabihin po, nagpapaganda ng ating pagkatao at ng ating pakikitungo sa kapwa. So, our human purpose is perfection, to grow in relationship with God, who is perfect, and discover His plan and purpose for each of us, which is the final cause. So, meron tayong, according to Aristotle kanina, ang ating efficient cause and then the final cause. Ang efficient cause is that God created the world. And then, what's the purpose of God para po i-create ang world? It is for His plan and purpose for each of us na ma-attain natin ang perfection. But perfection is only achievable or fulfilled in the afterlife. Hindi po dito sa earth. No human is perfect. So, perfect image na yan ng Diyos, and humans are imperfect. Okay? Nobody is perfect, di ba? Meron tayong ganun. Only God is perfect. But, we can be fulfilled and be made perfect in the afterlife. So, what dictates most people to do what is good is their fear of the afterlife, right? We fear na sumadyang magkasala. Kasi natatakot tayo sa punishment, which is hell, right? Our basic purpose in life is to fulfill God's purpose. And if we do not have that, we believe na we are destined for hell, right? Sino ba dito hindi natatakot mapunta sa impyerno? So almost all of us, our own goal is to join our Father in heaven in the afterlife, right? So morality enables us to fulfill our nature, which is the nature of perfection in the image of our God. And yun po nag-guide sa atin to do what is right and what is pleasing to God, right? So meron nga, di ba, yung mga Christians nga sinasabi, we are not perfect, di ba? Christians are not perfect, but just forgiven, di ba? Kung minsan, pag hindi tayo nakakahingi ng patawad sa Diyos sa mga kasalanan natin, we feel very guilty about it. And then we think that we might go to hell because of this kasalanan, of this sin that we committed. So, our sole purpose is to correct that sin and apparently spend the afterlife with our God, our perfect God. So, sinabi nga ba, di ba, perfect image. Man is the perfect image of God. So, imagine nyo, yun nga lang, He gave us free will and sometimes nagkakamali tayo sa paggamit ng ganyang free will. So, dito po, bakit po tayo nagkakasala? Okay, human nature and the synderesis rule. So, Aquinas believed that the most fundamental inclination of humans is to do good and avoid evil, right? So, kahit bata pa tayo, tinuturuan na tayo what is good and what is evil, diba? Tinatawag pa natin kung minsan. Naranasan ko pa nga noon na sabi, may nabasa pa akong yung devil daw dito sa left shoulder mo nagdi-dictate sa'yo. Ang angel nandito sa right, dictating you what to do what is good, while the devil is inclining you to sin. So this means that we are naturally inclined to live in a moral and virtuous way. Kasi mas gusto nating to do good and avoid evil, di ba? We teach children not to follow the devil on the left side. Kasi our own purpose in life, What we want our beloved children to have is to do good and avoid evil, to learn. Yun ang gusto nating ituro sa kanila. Following this rule will make people happy and content because they will be close to God, their Creator. Kasi diba, kapag feeling natin, sobrang makasalanan na tayo, we feel that God is so far away and God does not love us. Pero kapag nakikita natin na close tayo, relationship natin kay God, sinusunod natin siya, and then, nabibless tayo. And then, the eternal relationship with God, parang nararamdaman natin na, ayun, andito na yung purpose ko sa buhay. Okay? For example lang po sa career. Right? Actually, this is my third choice po ang pagtiteach. Kasi, I did not want to be a teacher at first. Okay? Because, we came from a family of teachers. So, lola ko is a school superintendent, vice principal ang isa ko pang lola, librarian ang isa ko pang lola, and then my auntie is also a teacher. Tapos yung mga anak ng mga lola ko na yan, also naging teachers. So being the third generation, parang ayoko na maging teacher. All my life I've been surrounded by women of power sa education. Kaya sabi ko parang nakakasawa na. Parang I want to be different. So at first, hindi lang first to third year, I took up nursing. Kasi sabi ko, para maiba naman. At the same time, I plan to go to the US to be a nurse. So thank God, hindi po natuloy yun. And then on my third year, na-realize ko, when I saw the suffering in the hospital, hindi ko kinaya. I was crying. Seeing children suffering in the hospital, hindi kaya ng puso ko. And sumusuka ako nagdudu kami ng surgery. Sumusuka ako dahil diring-diri ako. And hindi ko kaya yung mga batang iyak ng iyak sa sakit. Lalo na yun. I cried. So, I asked my mom if I could stop and change course. Which is medyo hindi magandang naging self-supporting student ako kasi na-disappoint kong parents ko. So, nag-change ako into AB English. Actually, gusto ko kasi mag-mass comm, pero AB English at the time was the available course. Madaling pasukan ng course na yun. So, nag-AB English ako. And I only been there for one semester. Ang ginawa ko, nag-change na naman ako into history. Because while reading English literatures, I noticed, mas maganda yung mga story sa history. Kasi more realistic. So, I changed na naman my major. Major in history. So, yun ang natapos ko. Because, for me, finding my purpose there. Ang galing ko sa pagdating sa Constitution, I excelled in most of my classes. Compared po, when I was in nursing, na halos stress, ginagapang ang grades, kasi I am not fulfilling my purpose. Hindi yun ang natural inclination ko. Hindi yun ang tawag niya sa akin. Ang talent ko ay hindi doon. So, when I transferred course, doon po na fulfill nandun yung sense of fulfillment ko. Naging happy ako. Because I excelled there. Andun yung lahat ng hilig ko. Reading stories of the past. And also, those stories are very realistic. Kaya medyo mas nag-go ako doon. And I finished, thank God, I finished din naman. Major in history. So going back to our lesson, sorry about that. So Aquinas believed humans to be fundamentally good and believed we are all created by God. So Aquinas did not believe we could knowingly choose evil. So hindi po niya inisip na mas pipiliin nating magkamali, right? So when I took up the wrong course for my college degree, hindi ko po yun purposely na pinili dahil lang ayaw ko. Pinili ko lang siya kasi meron ako nakitang ibang reason doon. Ang reason ko is para maiba naman. Okay? So why then we choose to do evil or the wrong choice itself? Hindi naman evil ha. Meron namang wrong choices tayong ginagawa. or in other words, to sin. Okay? So, immoral action sa mga malalim na yun. Okay? Hindi naman siguro mali. Hindi naman matuturing na sin ang paglilipat-lipat ng course. But in a more specific examples po, tulad ng drinking, right? Actually, wala rin naman sa 10 Commandments ang paglalasing. Pero nasa Proverbs po yun, nasa Bible natin, that only a fool gets drunk kasi hindi niya na nakokontrol ang sarili niya pagdating sa self-control, hindi niya na kaya. Okay? And marami po tayong napapatunayan na ganun po nangyayari. Kapag nalalasing, hindi na po alam ang ginagawa. So according to Aquinas, sins are not carried out because of evil intent or a corrupted nature. Hindi po tulad sa mga telenovela na sinasadya po nilang gumawa ng mali. But they have a reason. Parang meron silang, kinukonvince nila yung sarili nila, there is an apparent good with the na nakukonfuse natin kung minsan. Okay? So, akala natin, tama yung ginagawa natin kasi yun ang dictate ng ating reasoning. Pero meron po talagang real good. We get things morally wrong in the mistaken belief that they are good, when in fact, they do not fit the perfect human ideal. Okay? So, makikita natin kung sino kaagad ang kontrabida, di ba? Kahit ano pa yung reason nila, meron silang reason kung bakit nila ginagawa yun. But, hindi po nila yun sinasadya. Ang feeling lang nila, yun ang tamang ginagawa. Tamang gagawin. So, we need to use our reason and our experience correctly and choose the right thing to do. Kung minsan kasi, hindi lang nila alam what is the right thing to do. And they think that the thing that they are doing is already right. So, the right use of reason must determine and distinguish apparent good from real good. So, tulad for example po sa drinking. Drinking alcohol may make one feel more sociable. So, kailangan ko ng 2 shot para masabi kong I love you sa babaeng gusto ko. But, the ideal would be to feel confident and sociable without having to alter your body chemically. So, hindi kailangan ng chemicals ng katawan mo para maging self-confident ka. Yun ang ideal. Kasi, sino ba naman ang gusto ng babae sabihan ng I love you na lasing yung lalaki, di ba? So, mas maganda po yung self-confident kayo na hindi po kayo lasing. Hindi kailangan ng alcohol. Now, Aquinas on his moral framework had established fundamental goods for humans. So, sabi niya, fundamental goods for human beings are these 5 rules. Or dito po may 5 precepts. Okay? Number 1, the preservation of life. Number 2, human procreation. 3, advancement of knowledge and learning or education. And 4, living in a peaceful and harmonious community. This is law and order. And 5, the worship of God. So they are known as the primary precepts. So each of these can be developed into secondary precepts or secondary rules, which are practical human rules and secondary precepts. Reasons enable us to put the secondary precepts into practice in different circumstances. So, ang primary precepts po, unchanging, absolute, tulad na sinabi niya kanina, fundamental. These 5, hindi na po ito pwede ma-alter. Ito daw po yung kailangan ng tao. And secondary precepts, however, could be changed. Creativity and imagination will be needed, not blanket rules. Or blanket rules meaning rules apply to every person or situation no matter what. Okay? Hindi po stricto ang pagdating po ng secondary precept. Nachi-change po yan according to culture or according to belief. Depende po yan sa individual. And secondary precept and primary precepts will be dealt with more on the next slide. So, dito po muna tayo sa primary precepts. Okay, Aquinas believed that the human beings, number 1, yung procreation or the preservation of life, Life is the supreme good as it is the basis for all other goods. Second would be human procreation, yan, sila sa life yan. Then advancement of knowledge and learning, education. So it makes it possible for people to become independent and fully adult. Then procreation, reproduction, which ensure the continuation of the human race. And then law and order, which is number 4, would ensure that justice is upheld and that individuals are able to interact without fear or oppression. Fear of oppression or fear or oppression. I don't know if I am just typographically wrong there. So the last one is worshiping God, the creator and sustainer of the world and humanity, offers fulfillment and love. And God there does not just connote our own God. So meron maaring worshiping God like Allah. For the Hindu religion there, Vishnu, Krishna, and Shiva. So iba-iba po ang gods natin. But that would be a fulfillment of their the worshiping of their creator and sustainer of the world and humanity. Magkaiba-iba man po ang ating creator and sustainer, still we have this sense of religiosity na kailangan po nating i-fulfill ang ating obligation to our God na sinasamba. So no one is seeks evil for itself. It is only sought as an apparent good and therefore rest on a mistake. Nagkakamali lang daw ang tao. Kasi napagkakamalan natin na yung apparent good na akala natin, na reason ng ginawa natin yan, is iniisip natin na tama yung ginagawa natin. Tulad lang po sa mga telenovela, right? Ang kontrabida, kung minsan maaawa ka rin kasi, halimbawa, sa ika-6 na utos, yun lang alam ko eh. Sa ika-6 na utos, the mistress wanted to kill the wife. It's because naniniwala siya in herself, her reasoning na mas magiging masaya sa kanya ang husband na pinag-aagawan nila. Right? Mas magiging masaya yung, ano ba yun, Jerome ba yun? With the mistress. Parang feeling niya, the wife does not deserve the husband. Kaya mas magiging maligaya daw silang dalawa at mas makakabuo ng mas magandang pamilya kung sila ang magsasama. So they do not seek evil for itself. They just think na merong mas magandang mangyayari kapag nagawa nila yung action na gusto nila. For example din po, in a broader sense, Hitler. Si Hitler po, hindi niya sinasadya daw na patayin ang lahat ng mga Jews. He wanted to cleanse. He wanted the apparent good of ethnic cleansing. Para sa kanya daw, kailangan to get rid all of the may dugong Hudyo. Kasi hindi inisip, I don't know anong reason niya for killing all those Jews. Is just, he said na ethnic cleansing. Gusto niya to get rid the world of these Jewish people. And akala niya nakakatulong siya if he does that. Pero the real good is actually living harmoniously with others. That is law and order. Kumbaga, nilabag niya yung batas ng law and order. So there are 4 pictures down here, and this would be you'll be using that for task number 3. So interpret nyo po yan. Picture number 3, medyo malabo siya, but I think it's up to you kung paano nyo po siya i-interpret ang pictures. The rest, very clear po yan. So I hope na masagutan nyo po ang task number 3, which is 1 to 2 sentences lamang. And I want you to cite what is the apparent good and what is the real or ideal good. Okay? So, dyan po, ikukumpara nyo ano yung apparent good, ano yung real good. Okay? So, I'll just take note of that. Slide 15, apparent good and real good. Apparent good and real good. Okay. Task number 3. Okay. Task na. Okay, let's go to slide number 17. So, ito po yung kanina sinasabi ko sa inyo. So, there are 4 kinds of law na pinagbabasihan po ng natural law. Okay? So, we have the eternal law. And then the divine law na nagsasakop po sa lahat ng law na yan. Divine, natural, and human law. And divine law is Bible-based, moral law of God, divinely inspired, built into human nature, and reason required is the natural law. Then you have your human laws, which are the practical rules, can vary according to land, family, and accepted code. So like they are the secondary precepts. Ang natural law po ang primary precepts. Okay? Na pinag-usapan natin kanina. So dito yung hierarchical moral code. So eternal law, it is eternal, which is in the mind of gods that humans cannot know. We cannot fathom the mystery. Kumbaga, this is contained in the laws which govern the creation of the universe and control life cycle of everything in existence. So tulad po ng minention ko sa inyo, kahit ano pong scientific knowledge ay hindi po natin kayang hindi kayang maarok ng kaalaman ng tao the eternal law or the natural order, the laws that govern the creation of the universe and control life cycle. Diba? Next one is the divine law. This law is made known to us naman, unlike the eternal law, divine law is made known to us through the Bible. Okay? And also, not just in the Old Testament, but in the New Testament. So sa Old Testament, meron tayong 10 Commandments. And then, the Testament with Jesus is... with Jesus po, ay kasama din po siya sa divine law. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So, sila yung mga laws from the Bible that we try to follow. Diba? So, that's divine law. At dito rin po, binabasihan ang human laws and natural laws. For example po, yung divorce. Sa divine law po in the Old Testament, divorce was allowed. But in the New Testament, as much as possible, parang diba, forgive the person 7 times 77, something like that. Kumbaga, unending yung forgiveness. So, ang nangyayari po, dapat yung husband nyo or yung wife nyo na i-divorce nyo, forgive nyo na lang. And divorce is discouraged. Right? And then, natural law, everyone has a natural sense that good is to be done and evil is to be avoided, which some call human nature. It is what directs our conscience and if applied with reason to a situation will lead to the right outcome. So, natural law, be it na meron kang sinusunod na Diyos o wala, it's within you, within the human nature. Something that would preserve life, something in the primary precepts, di ba? Sila to. Natural law is the primary precepts, the fundamental goods, kumbaga. Ano nga ba yung, procreation, sorry, have to go back to that. Preservation of life pala. Procreation, education, and law and order, and religion, or worshiping of your God. Now, human laws are secondary precepts. Okay? These are everyday rules that govern our lives. From the legal system, the Constitution, right down to the simple notices na sinasabing, don't walk on the grass, or aso mo, tali mo. That's already part of the human law. So, the natural inclination, the primary precepts would be supported by the secondary precepts. So, natural laws is supported by human law. Like for example po, ito na, binalik ko na kanina. Secondary precept and primary precept. Sa number 1, the preservation of life. So, meron po tayo dito sa secondary precepts, do not commit suicide, right? Wala po yan sa divine law, right? Hindi po yan sinasabi na, bawal mag-suicide. Wala po sa Bible yan. But, it's like taking the life of another person. That is also murder. Minurder mo yung sarili mo when you committed suicide. So, do not switch life support machines. So, switch off mo po yung life support machine, di ba? Tawag doon euthanasia. Mercy killing, right? So, kumbaga, parang naawa ka na sa isang tao, comatose na baon na yung pamilya, ang ginagawa na lang ay mercy killing. So, some countries are okay with that. Some countries are not. Okay? Depende nga po yan. Ang secondary precepts is na sa inyo po yan kung tatanggapin o hindi. Ng inyong land, ng inyong culture, it varies. Okay. Number 2 is human procreation. primary precept. Okay? So, dito, permit IVF and that's like in vitro fertilization. Ibig sabihin yung hindi ka mabuntis pero like what we have in the situation of Vicky Bello. Kasi sabi, hindi naman nagbuntis si Vicky Bello, how come meron po siyang Snow Bello ngayon, di ba? So, what happened was that in vitro fertilization, they have a surrogate mother and surrogacy dito, nakalagay. So, permit IVF and surrogacy. Sa iba, pinayagan yan. So, Vicky Bello had this Snow Bello nowadays kasi pinayagan na po ang IVF and surrogacy. Legal po siya. So, yun, nasa pangalan niya po ang anak nila. Now, I think nga, ngayon, Vicky Bello, nakalimutan ko ang apelido ni Ko. Kasi, married na sila, di ba? So, the child bears the father's name na rin. Now, contraception is wrong. So, iba-iba po, ha? Meron pong pinapayagan ng contraceptive, meron pong hindi pinapayagan ng contraceptive. So, according to the Catholic Church, contraception is wrong, right? Kasi they only believe in the natural method, which is, what do you call this one? Calendar method, withdrawal method, and abstinence. So, yun lang ang pinapaniwalaan nilang natural po ng ng preventing pregnancy. For them, for the Catholic Church, ayaw po nila ng condom, ayaw nila ng pills, ayaw nila ng injection. They were against the reproductive health bill, remember? Kasi para sa kanila, it's against the natural order of things. Napigilin mo ang buhay ng pag-meet ng sperm cell and egg cell. So, dapat lang ng natural flow of things lang ang gagawin. Third one is, sorry guys, I need to take a break. Medyo napapagod na ako. I'll just need to take a 5-minute break. But don't leave kasi ipopost ko lang naman po ito. And I'll be back. Okay, thank you. I just had a water break para makahinga-hinga naman ng konti. Okay. Now, continuing with our lesson, we have number 3, advancement of knowledge and learning, which is education. So, secondary precept po, yung mga law na mga human laws po ay education is free. Tulad po dito sa Philippines. Ano tawag dito? Education for all. So, during the time of President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, education for all was established. That law, Republic Act, I forgot the Republic Act about that one, that she signed, na requiring all people or all children to study. Now, if meron pong mga parents na hindi po nagpapaaral ng mga anak, maaari po silang makasuhan. If somebody files a complaints against those parents, pwede pong makulong ang parents na hinahayaan ng mga anak nila na hindi mag-aral. Okay? So, we have that obligation as parents and people. Now, we have also one of the secondary, sorry, ang liit. Cannot see it. Isa pang human law to support number 3 rule in education is making schooling compulsory. Okay? Number 4, living in a peaceful and harmonious community, which is law and order according to Aquinas. So, ang gagawin po natin ay we need to build more homes para po sa mga squatter. So, meron po tayong or those informal settlers that are not living in a safe area dito, lalo na po sa Manila. And so, the government provides housing projects, di ba? So, we also encourage community activities. Okay, meron po tayong mga liga ng mga basketball. We have our barangay officials that will protect us, di ba? So these are law and order po na pinag-uusapan. So depende po, ito po yung mga human laws na establish po ang barangay para po to protect the people, di ba? The fifth one is the worship of God. So, human laws na example nito, set one day a week aside for worship. So, hindi naman po yan batas. Pero, nandun po tayo sa guide po ng ating mga church pastors, di ba? Or magulang natin, and also within us, the sense of obligation to set aside a day for worship. And then, hold school assemblies, like, for example po, sa tinaturuan tayong mag-pray, tinuturuan ng mga bata every May, di ba? Nung bata ako, may Flores de Mayo na nagtuturo po sa atin para mga teacher po sa catechist namin, yon. They hold school assemblies on how to worship God. Meron din pong retreat, di ba? During your high school days, you have your retreat bago po kayo graduate. So, these are human laws that support the secondary precepts, human laws that support primary precepts, which is the natural law. So, reason enables us to put secondary precepts into practice under different circumstances. Kasi, nagbabari po yan. Creativity and imagination kinakailangan, and not blanket rules, in deciding how we allow individuals to flourish and reach perfection. So, ang blanket rules, ibig sabihin, yung hindi pwedeng baliin. But, secondary precepts, pwede pong baliin according to our decisions on how we allow na mag-flourish and reach the perfection or fulfillment ng ang human nature. Next one. In 2 to 3 sentences, this is your task number 4. What does this mean? To ignore the dictate of reason is equivalent to condemning the will of God. Sabi St. Thomas Aquinas. Give your interpretation in 2 to 3 sentences only. The next one. Thomas Aquinas. Parang last na to. This one would be like how he truly believed. So, connected also with Aristotle. So, most of his teachings daw ni Aristotle nawala doon during the Islamic na-preserve daw po amongst the Islamic scholars of the East. Kasi di ba in-invade na po ng mga Islam ang eastern part of the world. But they were introduced into Western thought before Aquinas took up a position as a professor in the University of Paris. Kumbaga, itong mga writings ni Aristotle in support of Aquinas' belief, yun po ang nagamit niya po sa natural development of the moral code of the natural law. Now, Aquinas believed natural law was the moral code which human beings are naturally inclined towards. So, we are usually inclined towards what is beautiful, what is like, often the primary precepts, right? What makes what supports law and order, the preservation of life, procreation, diba? Pag pinatay po ang isang hayop, nagagalit tayo because that's just the natural order of things. That's our natural inclination is to protect life, maging hayop man or tao. So God reveals specific commands, but these do not go against natural law, but rather further and develop it. Kumbaga, dapat daw ang natural theology, which is based on human reason, should not go against revealed theology, which is based on the revelations of God. So, usually po, ang natural law is a support of the divine law. Okay? So, natural law is supported by divine law. Human law supports natural law. So, even without the knowledge of God, reason can discover the laws that lead to human flourishing. So, kahit wala daw po ang divine, nandun pa rin po yung eternal law natin, which will lead to human flourishing. So, lahat po yan, all those law na pinakita ko sa inyo kanina, eternal law, and then divine law, and then natural law, it all leads to human flourishing. So, even the human laws are supporting the natural law. So, nagsusuportahan po yan. So, next one would be, Oh, this one. Sorry, medyo na misplace itong slide na to. I would like you to go back to your apparent good and real good. So, ideal good. Doon din po yan. Pero ito po kasi kaakibat na ang primary precepts. Okay? So, with basing on the primary precept of reproduction, okay, or procreation, how do these actions confuse the apparent good of sexual gratification with the ideal good of reproduction? So, ang ideal good po or the fundamental good of procreation, paano po ba lumalabag itong mga nasa pictures? I'm not having any bias with the third sex, okay? This is just part of the lesson. So, I'm actually teaching gender and society. So, and also my studies for my doctoral will be about gender sensitivity. So, this is just an exercise for you to identify the apparent good with the ideal good. I'm not meaning any offense here, okay? Kung meron po ako na-offend dyan, if some people are practicing homosexuality, same-sex sex or marriage, using contraceptives, having abortions, doing masturbation, I'm not meaning to offend anybody. I just want you to identify the apparent good and the difference with the real good, ideal good na ini-specify ni Saint Aquinas. So I'm not saying na whatever is the teaching of the Catholic religion or Thomas Aquinas, which is the basis for the Catholic moral code, hindi po ako nag-dictate sa inyo nun. The point here is for you to identify the apparent good, the difference between the apparent good and the real or ideal good. Para po ito practice sa inyo. Okay? For you to know the differences between the apparent good and the ideal good. Medyo sensitive lang tong case studies na to. That's why siguro ito yung nilagay nila. Kasi napaka-sensitive na topics. Now, I want you to identify the apparent good and the ideal good for this one. Actually, marami pa pong magiging examples nito, but that would be if I could post something else in the Google Classroom. It's different, but siguro marami na kasing task na to, so medyo dito na lang muna tayo mag-focus. So, in conclusion, as presented by Aquinas, the natural law is based on the conviction that God created the world, establishing within it a sense of order and purpose that reflects His will. If everything is created for a purpose, human reason in examining that purpose should be able to judge how to act in order to fulfill itself, and therefore finds its own goal and ultimate happiness. So, since natural law is based on reason, it is in principle discoverable by everyone, whether religious or not. Ito po yung sinasabi ko sa inyo. Hindi po kailangan ibase sa religion. Okay? Kasi meron pong ibang religion that they don't abhor or hindi po pinagbabawalan ng same-sex marriage or homosexuality, tinatanggap po sa ibang churches. So, for the same reason, it is universal rather than limited to one religion or culture. So, sinasabi ko nga sa inyo, di ba, the human laws are adaptable, creative, and imaginative. So, nag-iiba-iba po ang human laws. But the natural law of things, doon po yun. Kaya po, meron po tayong mga nami-meet na resistance doon po sa issue ng the previous slide. It's because some people believe or they are morally inclined to believe na certain things that does not follow natural law would be lumalabag sa kanilang moral code or moral framework. So, but that does not mean you have to follow any religion at all. So, meron pong ibang hindi sumusunod sa ibang religion because they know that may iba pong purpose yung kanilang buhay rather than follow the religion. the teachings of the religion. So, wag po kayong matakot to give your own reflection. Okay? So, if you are inclined to write more, but it's your own idea, then much better po. Pero ayoko po ng copy-paste. Okay? So, please, kaya po maiksi lang hiningi ko, kasi para hindi po kayo mahirapan. I will know if it's a copy-paste answer. But please, I encourage you, since short sentences na naman hinihingi, to think for yourself. Para makapag-practice po kayo with your ethical ways. Tulad mga sabi nyo, di ba, in-expect nyo to learn more on how to make right decisions. So, please, this one, it's giving you already a chance to how to do your framework, your moral framework sa sarili mo. Okay? So, I hope, if you have any questions, in the last 2 videos I gave, parang wala man nagtatanong. So, ibig sabihin, malinaw ang lahat. Right? But if you really understand this one, I'll be glad, or you have any questions, I'll be glad to entertain your questions. Feel free to post on GC or PM me kung nahihiya po kayo magtanong. So, we have some sensitive topics and feel free to ask me, PM me anytime during your class session. So, I'm expecting everybody to write your comment on the video of YouTube for me to know that you already watched the video. Okay? Ano ba naman pong i-comment yung pangalan nyo? Okay? Hindi naman siguro po yan kawalan. And this is a private setting. Reminder po, hindi po lalabas yung names nyo saan man. This is a private setting. Huwag po matatakot. Okay? Anything else that I have forgotten? I don't think so. So, thank you for your time today. So, medyo napagod na ako. See, I told you, hindi ako lalagpas ng 1 hour kasi medyo, nakaka-drain din mag-lecture ng ganito. Unlike kung face-to-face tayo, siguro, may chance pa for you to take over, then you can discuss more. Now, if you also want to have additional information, feel free also na i-share nyo sa GC natin, ha? Huwag po kayo nahihiya. I'll be welcoming your comments and suggestions in GC. Thank you, and have a good day.